Letters That Move the World shows us the miracle of how the simple act of writing letters from the heart can start a ripple, a transformation of this world to a place where people care about and respect themselves, each other, every nation, and our global environment. And it introduces the celebration of Gratitude Day, or G Day, a day that brings it all into focus. In such an unprecedented time of challenge, division, and uncertainty, this could be the healing balm that brings about the unity, connection, and loving kindness that we are all so needing.
Welcome to the Inspire Health Podcast. Your life is about to get a whole lot better. Have you ever felt like you tried everything and yet still couldn't find the answers or the solutions that you were seeking? Whether you're dealing with chronic illness, physical or emotional pain, I want you to know that your body is the most sophisticated machine on planet Earth. Your body holds unfathomable wisdom. Trust in it and learn from it. Know that there are answers and there are solutions to your specific health challenges. And we will be uncovering all of them here on the Inspire Health Podcast. I'm so excited to be a part of your healing journey. Your transformation starts now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health Podcast. Today's guest is Cori Ashley. Well, and myself, because I'm going to be kind of interviewing Cori and I'm going to be interviewing myself.
Welcome, Jason. Welcome.
Thank you, Cori Ashley. Cori is a dear friend of mine. We have known each other now for, like 15 years plus, I think.
Plus 1,000.
Plus 1,000 if we count all the past lifetimes that we've probably spent time together.
Hang on.
Cori is one of these people that it is literally impossible for her to not do good in this world. When I first met her, we both really recognized this kindred spirit in each other. I was kind of doing this outreach, trying to create some positive shift in the world through my practice as a naturopathic doctor and osteopath and more in the healing arts. And Cori was doing the same thing, only through music and music therapy and through outreach with self-empowerment. And we kind of recognized this interconnection that we had. And so we decided to start combining our brains and our hearts together and seeing what we could make. And so I'm going to let Cori tell you outside of Cori being an amazing award-winning musician, you might not know, but you've probably heard her music, and her husband run a company where they create music for things like Operation Smile and World Vision. And she's co-created Global Shifts, which is basically tied in with this book as far as creating some movement in this world. And so many other things. I'm going to let her kind of fill in the gaps on some of those things. But what we're going to talk about today is that she is also the co-author with myself in our book called Letters That Move the World, Intentional Acts of Gratitude. And so what we are going to do is we're going to break that down for everybody today and basically explain why this is so needed right now and why this is such an important time that we can all play a monumental role in creating some real positive shift in this world. So Cori, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Jason. This is very exciting.
Now, I didn't get into all the other parts, but maybe you could just give people a little bit of a breakdown of some of the stuff that you've done, because I kind of washed over it pretty quick.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's been a big wash over the last 100 years. Basically, been a musician since the day I was born. Loved to play all sorts of instruments and whatnot, and got into writing at a very young age. And eventually, was always a songwriter. But to make a living as a songwriter was, virtually impossible at the time. So we got into writing music for television and film. So we've done a lot of shows from, news for various networks throughout Canada and the US, movies that have been in and out, written songs for extraordinary people like, unfortunately, the late Michael Burgess. And we worked on, as you said, World Vision, Operation Smile, Mercy Ships. They're just extraordinary outreaches. And we've been a part of these things that have helped us really learn how to outreach through creativity. That's been the source. And it really makes you feel good when somebody watches the show and says, I want to donate money to help. And you know that your music sort of helped to lift that emotion in that person. And as you and I experienced, when you come to writing, when you come to a place of being able to express yourself in words as opposed to music, it's the same feeling when somebody gets to read those words that you've written that mean so much to your heart, and then it touches their heart, and then it starts to shift things. It's very empowering, which led to the other side of things, which is my absolute, I guess you call it sort of a calling, which came originally from music, is the concept of empowerment and self-esteem, which started with just self-worth for women, which was very rampant in our home. My mother was a complete advocate for this. And then after having a child, it moved to self-worth for children, which people go, yeah, sure, you really need that. But when your 4-year-old comes home from school and talks about what a really rough day they've had in other kids bullying and not understanding the concept of things or whatever, you realize everybody needs a sense of support. And I think you and I are complete advocates of that. We've always been for each other and for everyone around us. Is how can we best bring you the tools you need to support yourself? And that's the basis of everything that you and I do.
No, absolutely. And we'll share all the links at the end on where you can see all of this information, but there's a lot of different stuff that's available and a ton of great resources. And so what we're going to talk about today is the book. And this book called Letters That Move the World, Intentional Acts of Gratitude, it essentially is showing us the miracle of how the simple act of writing letters from the heart can start a ripple and a transformation of this world to a place where people care about and respect themselves. They care about and respect each other, every nation, and our global environment. And we introduce the concept of G Day or Gratitude Day, where it brings it all together. So, Cori, why now? I mean, we wrote this book like 10 years ago, and it influenced us so much. I mean, we wrote this book 10 years ago, and we had never really put it out in a great deal, but it influenced so much of the other work that you and I did together and individually. It was such a catalyst, and it was such a profound shift for us. But now, why is it so important now more than ever?
Thinking about this, because when you and I started talking about finally sort of releasing this, right, which we've been doing all along, but sort of on a mass scale, I thought, why now? What does this book have? What is the point of it that really makes a difference? And the word that came to mind was relief. That gratitude creates a sense of relief. That if you're going through a tough time, the world's going through a tough time. There's so much controversy and there's just so many, it's like the world's been kind of divided right now with everything that's going on. People are thriving. People are trying to stay, above the water and just keep breathing at this point. And I'll be driving around sometimes with that feeling of overwhelm, just driving to the grocery store, knowing now I got to put on a face mask and I got to, go in, and is there going to be stuff on the shelves when all this stuff hits and whatever. And I'll just take a minute in the car and just say, okay, thank you. Just thank you for letting me have this car to drive to the store. Thank you for letting me be healthy enough to get to the store. Thank you for letting me have the money I have to buy what I need at this moment. Where it is, this is so important right now, is because there are so many people going through things that are so unattainable. People losing their homes, people losing relationships, people losing loved ones, right? It's a really, really difficult time. And that little moment of thank you brings relief. That's kind of my thought on it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And from my perspective too, I think if 2020 has showed us anything, I mean, I've never in my life, I'm 48 years old, and I've never experienced the degree of diversity and separation and judgmentalism from such a mass scale. So it's like when we have that degree of division and separation and judgmentalism, I mean, how do we work with that? What's really going to start to heal that? Because that is huge, and that we cannot move forward in this world. We cannot grow. We cannot move forward in humanity's evolution when we have such strong feelings of division and separation and judgmentalism. And
It's interesting. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Somebody just said the other day, we are moving forward in this world, but like you and I are talking about the ripples, we're moving forward in this world with that sense of separation and division. And that's, I think, what we're trying to heal, is that if we keep moving forward in this world with that as our foundation, that's what's going to keep getting bigger.
yeah, and I definitely think we are at a precipice. And a lot of times I think that people don't think that they are nearly as powerful as we actually are.
Oh,
And
we
what
have a lot
this
of power.
book gets into is how important our hearts play into this message. And that why we focused on gratitude around this, and we'll get into that in more detail, but gratitude is a really powerful field that allows people to shift. And the nature of gratitude does the opposite of what we're currently going through. It creates interconnectedness, it creates compassion, it creates unity, it creates community. And that is what the healing balm is in my mind, to move our world in a better direction than where we're going. And what we often forget is that what we experience in the external world is ultimately, in some way, a reflection of what is going on internal. And so, in order to correct an external environment problem, we have to find that change within ourselves first. And gratitude is that balm that is going to start that ripple of change that I think we all need.
Right. And even for the most resistant people, because you're going to meet people who just feel like life has been just a giant inconvenience and difficulty for them from start to finish. Just no support, no money, no help, bad attitudes, people not being nice to them, people not right. And so when you face people like that and you say to them, it's time to start talking from the heart or whatever, they're going to look at you and go, yeah, I don't think so. But when you talk to them from a place of what are you thankful for? They will always find something, whether it's their children, whether it's I go to church, right? And that's the difference, is that it reaches everyone. It's unconditional, right? Gratitude isn't one of those things where you have to be a certain person and you have to be of some elevated state of mind to be able to approach it. It is absolutely universal.
It's
universal.
totally true. It is completely accessible. It's ever available. We just have to make a choice to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do a bit of an overview just so people get a grip of what we're talking about with this book. So the overview is this. There's basically a few key steps, and then the book breaks you down and puts you in a place where you are ready to actually do all those steps and really get to the heart of it, where you embody this feeling of gratitude. But the gist of it is basically you identify folks to whom you want to write a letter of gratitude to. And part of this that we experienced was that this might be a lot different than what you might initially think it is. And through the processes you go through in the book, your concept of who these people are that you might be thankful for might be bigger than you think it is.
Right, exactly.
The second part is that then you write and send the letters whenever the spirit moves you. So you're always kind of creating these little ripples in the pond of gratitude. And think about this, if you can start to get more and more people doing that, think of the kind of ripples that are going to start to take place.
Oh, it's massive. Right.
And we're going to help you break down how this letter gets written, and you're going to see some examples of stuff and everything too, but it can be really, really powerful. And then the clincher is that on a specific day that we talk about, we will move the world together. So this idea of this massive tidal wave of gratitude, which is a very, very powerful field to create change in the world, we all do that together. And then we create this huge ripple to see what can we do to the collective consciousness. Okay, so that kind of gives you the idea of just what we're looking for. And now the book is going to break down all the pieces. Now I want to talk to you first about where this really started and why we decided on gratitude and how we came to this idea of writing this book. And so for myself, it started originally when I was in my second year of naturopathic school. And it was just sitting there, and it was like these times where you're just sort of sitting contemplating your life and wondering, like, how did I get to where I am right at this point in time?
What am I doing?
Yeah, what am I doing? And I mean, I was really happy to be where I was. I felt like I was fulfilling a dream of mine.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking about just what were my experiences that brought and led up to this event. And so I started thinking about different places that I had traveled and different people in my life. And it was all these really fascinating things, but it wasn't kind of grabbing the feeling that I think my heart was just searching for. And then as I was going through, two people came to mind that really impacted the entire trajectory of my life. And that was my karate instructor, who I started karate when I was about 12 years old. And it was not just the lessons I learned in karate, which was really deeply fulfilling. And I was just talking to my younger brother the other day who was up visiting, and he was saying to me, you completely changed when you started karate. I think I used to be a bit of an ass to my younger brother, and I would pick on him, and I was not all that nice in a lot of ways and a bit of a bully with him. And it was like, once I started karate, it was like I became a part of something bigger, and I think someone recognized some of the beauty that was inside of me, so he reflected it back to me. And then that
Yeah.
made me want to become and rise up to the occasion. But outside of that, it was also, he was this glue that kept this family together. And through all of the different people that I had met through the karate club, so impacted my life. I mean, I wouldn't have been, I don't think, even in naturopathic medicine if it wasn't through the people that I had met, through the chain of reactions that just happened. And so
Yeah.
I was completely overwhelmed by how thankful I was in the influence that he played in my life. And then the next person that popped up in my mind right away was my grandma. And my
Absolutely.
grandma really went to the core of my heart. From my perspective, I mean, sometimes you can have these really beautiful relationships with grandparents because they're a step away where they don't have to be the disciplinarian. They can just really enjoy the grandkids, and
Yeah, they
they can
spoil you and send you home. That's it.
and so for me, she was very much the epitome of unconditional love. And my grandma was one of these people that had such a long list of things that had happened to her, and she never seemed to lose faith.
Yeah.
She always seemed to be happy and
Mm.
always seemed to be appreciative of things. I mean, she had lost her first fiance in the war, her second fiance then from brain cancer, and then she lost who I knew kind of as my grandpa, had passed away from lymphoma. And so my grandma had these sort of tragedies. She had multiple sclerosis, she had post-polio syndrome, she had lymphoma herself, she had osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, she had a list of things. And by the end of it, we would just wheel her around in her wheelchair, but it's like she never really seemed to let that get her down. And it was such a profound impact on me. And I remember her saying, you know, Jace, sometimes you just do the best you can with what the good Lord gives you. Even
Mm.
if you could change it, you would, but if you can't, you just do the best you can. And so she really had a special place in my heart, and I felt so thankful for having the experience of just knowing her. And so what happened was I was really sitting there and I was so welled up to the point of tears that me feeling it wasn't good enough anymore. I needed to actually express it. And so
Mm.
I sat down, I wrote a letter to my karate instructor, I wrote a letter to my grandma, and I sent
Yes.
them off. And I didn't really think too much about that other than it just felt so good to share the feeling that was going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And I was so astounded at how even my life changed and the people that I was interacting with changed because I had literally changed inside myself. And then I think the thing that really moved me so much on how impactful a simple letter from the heart can be is skip forward about 10 years. I
Mm.
meet Cori, we write this book. I go back to visit my grandma, who at this time had lost her husband, my grandpa, and she was
Yeah.
staying at a older age home near my sister. And I went and stayed with her for a couple of days to visit her. And I brought the draft of the book, and I shared it, and I started reading it to my grandma because I said, you know,
Yeah.
you were the inspiration for
I
this book
remember
for
that.
me. And I said, do you remember when I wrote you that letter? She goes, she just nods her head. She gets up. She goes over to her dresser drawer, pulls the drawer open, takes out the letter that I had written her
I
10
remember
years
this.
ago and said, I read this every day and it moves me to tears before I go to bed. She goes, I've had that beside my drawer for the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
I
And
think
she,
you cried for a month. I think you cried for a month after that. I
well,
think you were just, that one just, it moved you so much, right? It was so astounding to think that you had this impact on this woman who had this massive impact on you. That was the meaning behind it, was, okay, I got you to feel what you made me feel, right?
oh, it was so, and it was just, it was how lasting it was. It was this idea that that one action that I took from my heart,
Yeah.
sharing the authenticity of what I was feeling and experiencing and that thankfulness, that that lasted 10 years
Yeah.
plus for
Yeah.
my grandma as a anchor to help her feel that. Like, what a incredible gift. I mean, when do we ever get something where we feel like we get that much juice out of it for 10 years
10
after the
years.
fact?
Exactly.
Um, and so it resonated with me and just how incredibly powerful that can be. Now, back up a little bit. I had had that experience with my grandma writing the letter and explaining that to her. And then I met Cori. And Cori and I was telling Cori this story, and Cori is starting to get moved to tears. And she just goes, oh my gosh. She goes, that's the same way I feel about my mom.
So I did the same thing. I had written a really long letter of gratitude to my mother, probably 10 years before that, before you and I met. And I gave it to her for her birthday. And thank God I did, because she died the next year at 65. No, nowhere in this universe was there any indicator that this was coming. We didn't, the day she passed, we didn't even know it happened, sort of thing. And I remember saying to you, thank God I wrote that letter, right? Thank goodness she left to wherever she's flying around somewhere. But thank goodness that she got to really know and feel how I felt about her and the impact that she had on my life, and that the impact that I would like to have on her life. You know, I learned it from the best. So did you, right? And I gave her that letter. But what was really meaningful to me was after I spoke to you about it was, even though she had already passed on, I sat down and I wrote the letter, another letter of gratitude, because now I'm moving into this other stage of my life where I have a child and I see her in that child. And I see myself being this mother, this unconditionally loving mother, the way that she was to me, right? And I could be an unconditionally loving friend to you, to whoever, because of who she is. And so here we are, years past when she went, and I'm sitting down to write this letter of gratitude. And even though I can't hand it to her in person, I know she knows. But what astounded me is what it made me feel like. That's what blew my mind, was when you were talking about your grandma and you were talking about your sensei and stuff. And I went, this is it. This is, I need to let her know this. And I needed to let me know this, right? That was the part that blew me away, was just acknowledging it, just right. That was amazing.
Well, and you said such a key point. It's like we often think that gratitude is how we make somebody else feel,
Yeah.
right? And don't get me wrong, that is a huge part, and we do create that. But this is the whole concept, is that it
The
starts
book.
with you. It
Right.
starts with that first stone that's cast. It starts with that first place of you becoming and embodying gratitude. And that's what shifts you. And then
Yep.
that's what moves other people in the world around us.
Yep.
And I totally know what you mean. It was like when I went through that experience, I remember just sitting there in this sort of blissful state for a while, just feeling so almost moved to tears, like at the drop of anything,
Yeah.
in
This
such a beautiful
experiencing it,
way.
right? That's why I use the word relief, right? Because I couldn't talk to my mother. I couldn't physically have her here to hug or to talk to, but writing this letter made me feel like I was. It was my relief. So what we went through in writing this book in that, in your, that apartment, was freezing in the winter and then sweltering in the summer and getting indoor air conditioning and whatever. My favorite thing was that when we would write, we'd always take a break and walk around the corner and get those cupcakes, right? Wicked cupcakes, right? And I remember it had a particularly bad week, and I came down because we were so close to finishing the book, and it was an ice storm. It was just one of those horrendous rain and then flash and then ice, snow everywhere. And I drove down from my place, knuckles white, bearing down and down there. And I got to your place, and you sat there with this shit-eating grin on your face, going, "Yeah." And I went, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." And then you pointed, and there was the box of cupcakes sitting on the table. You walked over the ice, slid around the corner, all the way around the corner, and got our freaking cupcakes and brought them back. And that's gratitude.
Needed to make sure that we were prepped to write.
That was the part, but that was filled my heart with gratitude. Was just somebody walked across the Delaware to get to these cupcakes for me.
It's
That was
sometimes just those simple acts.
oh, made my life. That was it.
But what
That
was
was
really neat was when we were talking about these different experiences that we had with these two really important heroes in our lives,
oh yeah.
we then started to think, and we literally said this at the same time, we were like, man, can
Imagine
you imagine what it would be like if
if
everybody got to
everyone did
feel
this.
that?
Yeah.
And then we literally looked at each other and said, what if everybody felt that at the same
I don't,
time?
it was just like
And it literally was like bolts of lightning going through with this
yeah.
idea of like, holy cow, like if you could time something like that where everybody gets that spark of
Right?
rush
That
of like endorphins and
absolutely.
this field of gratitude and this light that literally goes through your body,
Yeah.
what would happen?
Yeah.
What could actually happen to the
Yeah.
whole world collective conscious, if we could get enough people, I mean, we know that there's been lots of scientific experiments on the effects of intention. We'll talk about that down
Absolutely.
the road here a bit, but we know that that has a powerful effect. But man, if you could get a united front of millions of people doing this at the
Yeah.
same time, I think the potential of shifting to a higher state of consciousness is very, very possible.
And
And
all
so,
it took was writing a letter. All it took
yeah.
was sitting for a moment and thinking about people you love. It's, you don't even have to go deep into this whole meditative blah, whatever. It's just straight up, who makes you feel good when you think about them, who brings love to your heart, or who brings compassion or empathy, or any of those things. And that's all it took, was writing that letter. And it doesn't have to be a whole letter. It can be like 3 sentences. It's just getting it out into that state, and things just start to happen, right?
Mhm.
Good things start to happen.
Yeah, and I think this is just what I mean by we forget how powerful we are. It's
Yeah.
when we open that gift inside of our heart, it's amazing what can shift.
Yeah.
And as we went through this process, we would see changes happen in our own lives. We'd see changes happen in our friends and our families just by holding this state.
Yeah.
I even remember a book by Wayne Dyer before, The Power of Intention. He would talk about how much he could transition not only himself from holding a certain intention, but also transitioning that and affecting his family dynamics when he would come home for
Yeah.
Christmas or something along
Yeah.
those lines.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly powerful. And this is why we feel like right now, more than ever, we need to create a movement around this.
And it's
So,
doable, right? I think that's important to make a point, is that it's right now, when people are filled up and they're exhausted and they don't teach me anything new. Don't give me any more to think about. Don't whatever. It is so simple. It is so simplistic, and it's a part of everyone's life already.
yeah.
We're not introducing something that they have to now go into and get an encyclopedia of this and download this program and do that, whatever. It's like 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, and like you said, you don't have to get into a meditative state. Not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but it's really just connecting to something that we all have access to. We just
Right.
have to remember it,
Right.
basically, and bring it back
Right.
up and then
Yeah.
share it. So then the question is, why gratitude? For us, gratitude was because that was our personal experience. We were overwhelmed by that feeling, and we
Right.
decided that that's what we want to make a movement with because it was such a profound feeling for us. And then
Yeah.
as I really then studied this a little bit more to look into it in more detail, what I really love about gratitude, and this is how I kind of think about things a lot of times in life, it's like, especially when we get kind of bogged down and we're feeling overwhelmed and we're, however, whatever field that we are in, and when I say a field, like whatever we're feeling, that's kind of how we see the world. So if I'm feeling fearful, then I see a fearful world. Everything
Yeah.
around me is scary. I need to protect myself. I'm worried. I'm stressed all the time.
Yeah.
If I'm in a field of anger, then everything I see an angry world. I see a resentful world.
You used
So
to say, what color are your glasses that you're looking
exactly,
through,
it's the
right?
lens of which you view the world through. And you think about this almost like climbing up a mountain. And
Yeah.
it's not like the bottom of the mountain is worse or better than the top of the mountain, or the top of the mountain's better, but the view is going to be inherently different.
Yeah.
And so gratitude is a fairly high level of consciousness. And if
Yeah.
we can connect to that, what happens is that your perspective of the world in an instant can completely change.
Can I tell Joe's mountain story really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Joe, she was one of our extraordinary, Joanne Kane was one of our extraordinary teachers, mentors, second mom. And she told the story. She was a mountain climber. I'm sure she was like 80 when she was climbing mountains. So this was a story that, our mentors shared with us, which we loved. And she used to mountain climb, and somebody said to her, you need to come to this mountain. It's the most beautiful mountain on earth. You have to come and experience this. I don't remember where it is, but it was pretty extraordinary. So they got there with all their gear, and they start climbing up this mountain. And she said it was the most gray, dull looking series of boulders that she's like, seriously, trying to see the beauty in this. Joe is very spirity. So she's like, oh, okay, it's beautiful rock. This is nice, whatever. She's going up the mountain. She's like, I don't get this. I don't get why they're saying this is the most beautiful mountain. And she kept going up and whatever. And then she got to a certain point, and she turned around to sort of see where she had been, where she came from, how far up she had gotten. And when she turned around, she looked, and the entire side of the mountain was covered with wildflowers that were physically growing out of the rock. And she just it was breathtaking. I remember when she told the story, she just went, it's just, and she said, had I not gotten high enough up and had I not taken the moment to look back from where I came, I never would have seen them. And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about here, is that, it takes that climb. Sometimes it takes that reach, right? We're in a low place. We're not feeling great about things. And it takes that effort of just climbing up that little bit. And the cool thing about gratitude is it grabs you and pulls you up, right? It makes the climb so much easier, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's that sometimes you know, it's like when we get stuck in feeling and seeing the world in a certain way, you really can't change it unless you change the state that you're in. It's
Yeah.
like you can only see the world from one perspective, and
Yeah.
no matter what people tell you, you won't change the way you're seeing it. But if you can get into a different state, then you naturally have a different perspective, and then
Yeah.
you can genuinely feel something different again.
Yep.
And yeah, Joe's story I use all the time because
Yeah.
it's such a powerful analogy of the power that we have to see our world different and make big changes, but it just takes a shift in consciousness. And
Yeah.
again, when you connect to those higher states of consciousness, it's not so much work. You do get lifted. It's like,
Yes.
it doesn't take much when you can slow things down and connect to some
Right.
of these feelings. I mean,
Right.
all of us have experienced profound gratitude at some point, but what
Yeah.
usually happens is everybody's so stirred up in their current life and their stresses and everything that we can't connect to them again. So if we can
Right.
slow down and go through and then really connect to it, all of a
Right.
sudden you start to see pretty magical things take place.
Yeah, here's the best analogy I've ever given anybody about gratitude. It's like having the worst day of your life and then winning the lottery. Isn't that it? I mean, you're just so down in the dumps and everything's going wrong and life's gone to shit and everything's whatever. And you get this phone call and they're like, you just won, the Princess Margaret cottage up in Muskoka. And it's like, it's impossible to stay down in that dump for even for a minute, right? You're just like, what? And that's what it felt like, right?
Yeah.
When you're in that sadness or in that depth of it, and then you just find that little piece of light and you go, this is what I'm grateful for, the fact that I'm still sitting here, that I have a chance at moving out of this, or I'm just so grateful for that cupcake, or I just whatever it is, right? That little bit of light comes in and then it just makes things lighter, right?
Well, and you inherently then start to see different things that you didn't see before. So
Yes.
even when you see no way out of stuff, you connect to a higher field like that, and all of a sudden, there's so many more options
There's
available
the
to you.
flowers.
There's all
Exactly.
these other things that you had no idea were there. They're always
Yeah.
there, but we just
Yeah.
weren't picking them out of our
You can't, no,
experience.
because you're sitting sort of too far down in the
Yeah.
dark, right?
Yeah.
And then it just, somebody had to click that light bulb on for you to notice that you're sitting in a room full of, cash.
Well, and I think of it a lot
Whatever,
like
right?
when people fall in love. It's the same thing. You can be
Yes.
feeling really crappy, and then all of a sudden it's like you fall head over heels in love, and all of a sudden the same world you've been seeing is painted very different color.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of things we talk about in the book too, because part of the intention is to connect people to this feeling of gratitude and obviously to express it and share it so we can create this huge
Right.
movement throughout the planet. But it's also to bring certain awarenesses to the individual, because it's ultimately starts within us. And the more that we bring awarenesses into ourself and the more that we embody these things, we have a bigger impact. And then it's almost like you can't help but want to share that with other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
some of the signposts that we talk about in the book, when you know you're living from this attitude of gratitude that we talk about. So here's
Yeah.
some of the big signposts. So acknowledging the gift that you are, understanding or at least entertaining the idea that you were born as a perfect gift, knowing that you are capable of having an impact on the hearts of others and in turn on this world,
Mm-hmm.
being genuine and expressing more frequently from your authentic, loving self, recognizing that you are being kind, loving, and compassionate to yourself and others. That's often probably the hardest one for most people.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah,
it's easier to be loving and caring for others, but we often tend to be hardest on ourselves.
for sure.
And then feeling the joy of having someone receive the gift of you. Now, a lot of people might be already experiencing some of those, but what our intent is with the book is that you start to experience more and more of those more regularly in your regular
Right.
life.
And have access to them, right? That I think is a big part of it, is not just, where do they come from? Do you buy them in a package or something? It's just, it's already there within you. It's just figuring out how to get access to it, especially when you really need it.
Exactly. And the book breaks down in many different exercises that you go through the different chapters that
Yeah.
help you really arrive at it
Yeah.
and bring you those tools that you need to really access it, like Cori's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, Cori, tell me about ripples and the concept of more.
So more, this is, you and I came up with this. M.O.R.E is my own ripple effect. And the idea is that, like you mentioned before, if I take a rock and I throw it into an absolutely still body of water, it's going to kerplunk in the middle. And then you're going to see those ripples around that, in the water around that rock. And all it took was even sometimes a tiny pebble, right? Okay. So the idea being is that sometimes all it takes is one tiny little thing to start creating this massive ripple, right? Of the same feeling. So looking at it from both sides, if it's a negative thing, if I stand in front of people and I say, you're terrible and you can't live up to my expectations and I don't feel like you're worthy of anything, right? And then they go home after being scolded that way at school or at work or something, and they're going to walk in the door and go, nobody here is living up to my expectations. And that emotion is going to ripple out. And then those kids or those people are going to go and they're going to treat other people that way. They're going to carry it with them. But if I walk around with an essence of, you know, thank you, right? You did your best that you could. And thank you. Maybe we just need a little more help on this side of things, but thank you for trying. Thank you for being you. Thank you, Jason, for, writing this book with me. Thank you for doing these podcasts. Whatever it is. Thank you to our new puppy for bringing joy into our lives during this COVID nightmare, whatever it is, right? That joy that I have now conveyed to you, right? Not even just gratitude, just that actual emotion of, I love you, or thank you, or you're hilarious, or whatever it is, that ripples out, right? So the question we always ask is, what do you want more of? And I do this when we work with kids all the time who are bullying or whatever, and just say, how's that working for you? Right? So you're putting this out there to these kids, and then they fight you back. Then the next day we show up at school with a box of cookies and they share the cookies with everybody in the class. And now everybody's their best friend. So the question is, what do you want more of? And that's what that stands for, is M-O-R-E, is my own ripple effect, is what are you rippling out? Because what you put out there, it's not just what you get back. What you put out there is what you're creating more of. So what do we want more of, especially now with everything that's going on? What do we want more of?
Yeah, eh, perfectly put. I love it. And yeah, we were pretty excited with ourselves when we came up with some of these acronyms. We gave some
Oh
pretty
yeah.
big high fives, but
Oh yeah.
it's a play. You'll see in the book, there's a play on the word of more. It talks about we always want more, and there's always more available, and there's
Yeah.
always more. And really, this is also a testament to when we move into these different fields. There's so many things that are available to us when we move into a place of gratitude that just wasn't available to us before.
That's right.
And all of that starts with that first pebble, right?
Yeah.
And so the more is my own ripple effect. And we talk a lot about the idea of like, you really need to become that which we are trying to spread. So
Yeah.
it's not just sort of, there's nothing wrong nonchalantly saying thank you and these types of things, but what we're trying to get at and what really moved us when we did these letters originally was that we really felt what deep sense of appreciation and gratitude was.
Yes.
And that's where all the power happens. If we think about things kind of less in terms of like, say, physicality and biochemistry, we think about things in sort of terms of like vibration and frequency and energy
Yeah,
a little bit.
exactly.
When we become that frequency of gratitude and appreciation,
Yeah.
we create a field around us, and that field around us
Right.
interacts with people, their fields, it interacts with the world around us, and we have a
Yeah.
dramatic, very intimate effect on the world around us. But it all starts with
That's
us,
right.
and so we need to get to the place of really connecting and feeling what that is, and then making the choice to act on it.
And that's why the book worked, right? lots of people write words. Okay, same thing. I write music, right? And that's why the music affects people, because the vibration that I put into that music is what's reaching out to them. They're feeling it. Our complete vibration of integrity and loving and a really, really basic foundation of wanting better for this world, right? We felt better doing this, and we really wanted other people to experience this. That vibration went into those words that went into the book. So you're not just reading words. What you're reading is our more. You're reading our, what do we want to create more of, right? And that's what this book is. That's why we were so incredibly delighted with the whole thing when we were done, because when you read it, it's fun and it's easy and whatever, but it's just, you'll feel our excitement in the words. And when you start to experience it yourself, all of a sudden you go, wow, this isn't little, right? It's not little at all. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And a lot of times we sit back and we often picture some big players that have made big changes, and we're often waiting for somebody else to make the change for us. So for example, we can look at major players like people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, who have cast a pretty major stone in the global pool,
Oh,
and it created massive change in the world. But what
ripples.
we
Yeah.
are proposing to everybody is that we don't have to wait for certain big players. We can all be a big player, and
Oh,
everybody has the capacity to do that within
yeah.
themselves. And if we
Yeah.
can all, and it's time to start to take that within our own hands and make
Yeah.
that change.
And effortlessly. That's the thing
Yeah.
that's astounding about this, right? That just, it's effortless.
Well, and not even effortless, it feels amazing when you
Yeah.
connect to it. It's
Yeah.
like, if you want to have something that's going to uplift you,
Yeah.
connect to that feeling. It will
Yeah.
make significant changes.
Yeah. We used
And
to call it the gratitude drug. Remember?
right. G
Woo!
drug.
Like, yeah, the G drug, dopamine. It's like, let's go.
Yeah, and a quote by John F. Kennedy said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by them."
Yeah.
And that's really the essence. And the magic is that when you connect to it, you are living through it. You are living by it. And you can't help but allow that to ripple out to everybody else. So it's not like you have to do anything other than just become in
Be it.
alignment with that feeling. Yeah.
That great Gandhi quote, right? Be the change you wish to see, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see that, and there's some artwork in the book where we have some of the different quotes that really moved us as we went along as well. Okay, so G Day. Let's talk about G Day. What is G Day, and why did we choose that?
It's not to be confused with G spot, which we
Mhm.
said in the book. We just
Because people
this
would
is G.
take that in a very different direction.
This is G rated. It's G Day is G rated. So G Day. So G Day, I feel, is the manifestation of our excitement around the idea of, imagine if everybody did this, right? I remember us sitting there and going, can you imagine if like everybody in this building, and it literally went from this building to this city to this, could you imagine if everybody in the world did this? Like, we literally did this at exactly the same time. And so G Day is that opportunity. And Gratitude Day is every day, right? You don't have to wait for, G Day to do this sort of thing. But our effort in trying to sort of accumulate this massive power of gratitude to just to ripple out throughout the entire world, and then potentially allow millions of people to feel this moment of, oh my God, you bought me cupcakes, right? So this, right? So everybody can experience this uplifting feeling of, I'm grateful because someone was grateful for me, right? And I always say, do you have an angel, or have you been an angel, is the way I describe it, right? Have you been an angel to someone else? Has someone been an angel to you? Write the letter to them. Write the letter to yourself, right? Yay for me, I got through this crap week, right? Whatever it is. And so G Day is a day where we said, everybody on this day, and we chose January 7th, which is why I'll explain in a minute. And on that day, we want you to write a letter, and we want you to post it, whether you email it or you mail it or you pick up the phone and you read it to someone. And that's how we would get that collective consciousness of gratitude in that one huge nuclear bubble of just gratitude, right? And we chose January 7th originally because we wanted to start the year that way. We've always sevens. That's our numerology thing. We love seven, 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 seven. So we picked the seventh, but January was because we thought, you're moving into a new energy. You're moving into a new time and space. Why not start this year with this positive burst of something that's a support system to yourself and to everyone else. And then I'm going to hand it to you, and you can explain why we have now created a second event in December.
Yes, well said. So that's the gist of G Day, is that it's this where we all join in and cast our stones together and see what
Yep.
happens. And you got to picture this, like think, and this can be done in lots of ways. And the website will have some other resources for how people can do this. But
Sure.
we did it as a handwritten letter, and there's some real magic that happens with a handwritten letter too. It's just something more personal. There's something really fun when you actually receive a letter in snail mail and you actually open it and you can have that, right? But I mean, in
Yeah.
this day and age, I get that it's sometimes easier and more accessible to be able to do things through email and in different ways like that
Texting
too.
and
There's lots of
exactly.
different ways that we can do it. Ultimately, it needs to be, when you're moved, how do you want to share it? And
Right.
it's going to be individual. But given the climate of what has gone on in 2020, we feel like we want to finish the year with a massive shift in gratitude and then begin the next year with a massive shift in gratitude. I think we
Keep it
all
moving
need
right
this,
through.
and it's going to be a very powerful field to create some change. So the other date that we want to do is December 21st. From an astrological sense, there's a lot of changes happening around that time. It's a
Yeah.
huge light point around it. It's a very, very powerful time to create some intention around what we want our lives and the world to move towards.
Yeah.
And it's also the beginning of winter solstice, which is also, from other cultures, that is the new year, right? So it's like we're kind of hitting it in two different places. And I
Yeah.
love that it can be at the end of what our year is and then at the beginning of what our year is. So
Yeah.
we're
And
going
it
to
can continue
basically,
through, right? You can
yeah.
start on the 21st. It takes you right through, whether it's Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever it is. Those are all events of gratitude, right? So on the 21st, like you said, where there's this giant light point, sort of for those that don't sort of relate to the concept of a light point, what that basically means is there's already a collective energy that's sort of happening on that date. Wherever it's coming from, but it's projected that there's a collective energy on that date, so you can kind of ride that wave, right? So you can
Mhm.
kind of jump onto that collective energy, put your gratitude together, shoot it out there, and then just continue it straight through to January 7th. Take a look at what the new year looks like. Okay, so maybe this has changed, maybe I've changed. I've already given up on my New Year's resolution, so let me look at something else, or whatever it is. It was just, it lasted 6 days. And so, and what you're going to do is continue that sense of gratitude straight through from the completion of this year to the beginning of next year. And I think you're going to find a really huge sense of power in being able to do that through the holiday seasons into the new year, and then just keep it going, right?
Yeah.
Just keep it riding.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that. These letters going all over the world are intentions of
Yeah.
gratitude building up inside of us, sharing it with other people from December 21st right through until January 7th. If
Yeah.
we can spread
Yeah.
that out, I mean, it just can make such a profound
Gonna get
impact.
bigger. Just gonna get
Yeah,
bigger.
and it's just going
Have
to
you
get
ever
bigger and bigger.
received Have you ever received a gift? We used to do this thing in our family that was called unbirthday, which means that at any point in the year, somebody would buy you a present and give it to you because it's your unbirthday. It's not your birthday, but I'm just giving this to you. That's what this reminds me of, is that when you receive a letter of gratitude, and you and I have written them to each other, several, right, on occasion, and not even sort of influenced by either of us, but we just pick up that, just kind of getting the feeling that maybe this person could use a little bit of a lift. And you just write, I just want you to know how grateful I am for you. Right. And here's what I love about you, and your quirky this and your whatever, and that we laugh at all the same things, whatever it is. And you get this letter for no reason. It's not Christmas, not my birthday, whatever. And the feeling around it is just massive. Right. Because unsolicited, it just shows up, and that's what we have the opportunity to do, is to start the opportunity to start this, like on the 21st of December, is just, who are you grateful for? Maybe you're grateful, like I said, for yourself. Just manifest it, write it, text it, whatever. Send a letter to yourself every day. Here's why I'm really happy about me, right?
Mhm. Well, and part of that's we get into that in the book too, because it always starts within us, because you can't
Yeah.
give a drink from an empty glass. So then, as we're moving through the book here, one of the other chapters in the book is called The Science of Gratitude. And why we
That's
chose to
you.
do the science of gratitude was because it's one thing to feel it and to have these experiences, but particularly our North American brain always likes to see the quote unquote proof of things. And we
Yeah.
often assume that certain science stuff is the proof that we need. Well, I think that science can be an amazing tool when it's guided by the intuition of the gut and the wisdom of the heart. And so the research that's on gratitude was really pretty phenomenal. I think most people know that gratitude is a pretty powerful vehicle for positivity and change in our lives. And what we did is we talked to a good friend of mine, Dr. Kieran Cooley, who's also a naturopathic doctor and works for the research department in the College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I love the beginning chapter of this when you look at the science of behind gratitude, and it has a big red label that says, warning, gratitude may be helpful to your health. Side effects of expressing gratitude may include living longer, less frequent illness, decreased risk of stroke or mental illness, better sleep, and a greater overall satisfaction with your life. So how he breaks down the book is he basically looks at gratitude in my body, gratitude in my psyche, gratitude in my community, and gratitude in the world. And he goes through
Yeah.
these different sections, and we just pull it out. Gratitude in my body is looking at the power that emotions have, and that they have a very real physical effect on our physical health. So everything
Yeah.
from decreasing our risk of heart attack and stroke to decreasing our risk of the common cold or flus. All of that stuff can take place just by embodying this feeling. What we always need to remember is that we have the most potent pharmacy within inside of ourselves that we could ever ask for. And when we feel certain things, we create specific neurochemistry that supports our body or creates detriments in our body. The gratitude in the psyche is basically looking at how when we start to feel better, we act differently, and we even on a cellular level actually become a different person. And it really is as simple as that. And in this section, he breaks down how embodying gratitude increases our resilience to life circumstances and stressors. And this is something that is so important, because when we lack that resilience, our life gets small pretty quick. But when we increase that resilience, our life can start to expand, and we can bring more into it. We can have more life experiences. We can grow. We can evolve. We can see different perspectives. And then when he moves to gratitude in my community, it's really fascinating. It looks at, so if I'm feeling gratitude, or how does gratitude affect those around us, friends and strangers alike? And one of the really fascinating studies showed that if you just know someone who is happy and shares that emotion, it increases your chance of feeling happy by 15%. And if that person happens to live within a half-mile radius of you, your risk of happiness increases up to 42%. I mean, profound. So when we
Yeah.
talk about this massive shift, getting millions of people feeling this at the same
Yeah.
time, I mean, you are going to have an effect on people, even that you're not even intending to have an effect on. By nature of what you have become,
Right.
you will influence
Right.
those around you.
Exactly.
And then the last one is gratitude in the
Yep.
world. And
Exactly.
he breaks down that there's over 500 studies at that time, probably more than double that now, that investigate the impact of what occurs when we focus our intention on people or events removed from our
Yeah.
immediate surroundings. So whether that's prayer or meditation or a focus on gratitude, basically the positive effects are absolutely correlated. So when
Yes.
we embody that, we do ripple that out, and we can have this impact that we're so excited to see what's going to happen, and we're so excited to be a
Yeah.
part of.
It's effortless because you may just be saying, I'm grateful for, or thank you, or this is a relief because here, and unintentionally that energy is just going out. It's rippling out anyway. Right. And it's so weird how sometimes, I always talk about this, you go to visit, let's say, family members, and there may be some tension with those family members, and you're heading there with that dread. You're like, oh, it's just going to be a fight. This happens every time. And I spoke to my friend about this, and I said, why don't you go to this dinner and with the attitude of, I'm really grateful that all of you are here. I said, even if it's a tough call on that one, right? But just see what happens. And she walked in the door, didn't say a word. She just held the energy of, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm really grateful for the people that are here, providing this supper for everyone, giving us a safe place for whatever. She just exuded that gratitude or whatever. She said it was the most easy, extraordinary evening that she'd ever had there. And she never said a word. So
Yeah,
there's
she
that
just
science,
became
right?
it and let that field change. People
Yeah.
entrain to that field. If you can hold a
Yeah.
state, people will entrain to that higher level of resonance. So
Oh,
it's, I
yes.
mean, such a powerful piece. Okay, and then we've got the chapter on finding gratitude where you least expect it and the concept of heroes. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, HERO, our acronym for how our experiences reflect upon others, how our experiences reflect on others, meaning something that you particularly experience, just like that ripple, that energy from that experience, your knowledge, can reflect outwards and shift things to a positive and bring perspective. And the story I like to share is that we work throughout the Caribbean a lot with our program, and we were all sitting around a table, extraordinary little girls and boys that I was working with, and they were 5 years old, 5, 6 years old. And I'm sitting there complaining about how, oh, I'm so fat. I just ate this big lunch and like barely fit in my pants, and oh, and I'm just complaining about what every woman, that's in this North American state complains that I'm just too fat, I'm too fat. And she looked at me and she said, how amazing that you had that much food to get fat. And I went, what? And she said, we haven't had lunch for 3 days. And this area happened to have been a very poor area. And they didn't have food. And the lunch program at school ran out, was not able to assist them. And she said, I would be so happy to have that amount of food. She goes, I would love to be fat. And never again since that day have you heard me complain about right? So because you get this perspective from people of just, and that 5-year-old became my hero. That 5-year-old overcame any and all pre-existing notions, stuff handed down for centuries from my family of women who are all, this is your hair, this is your fat, this is whatever. And in that one sentence, that child became my hero, how her experiences reflected upon me and how now I share that story with others. And in the book, we have several letters from some pretty extraordinary people. And some of them we're very sad to say we have lost since the start of this book. And they're even more our hero now. And your brother being one of them, who tells probably the most extraordinary story of his experiences, in his travels as a diplomat and things. And to me, this is one of the most touching parts of the book because it's real people and they are absolutely telling you how their experiences change them, and that reflects out, and that becomes a massive ripple in itself.
Yeah, this part of the book is a really powerful piece because the idea is that it's often easy to feel gratitude when things are going our way, when things are going well, when life is smooth, when things are going easy. I think it's a bit of our natural tendency to be appreciative of that for most of us. The
Sure.
challenge is that when things are not going the way we want them, when we are inundated with pain or suffering or fear or uncertainty, can we find the courage to make our way back to gratitude? And this is where this hero's experience really lies. You become a hero just by the way you live your life. And what's so powerful in this section is that you read these letters of key people that have had some very diverse experiences where they found gratitude where you did not think that it existed. And
Exactly.
in the process of them finding that, completely transformed and shifted their life. And like you had mentioned, my brother's letter, I still cannot read my brother's letter without getting welled up every time I
No,
read it.
no, exactly.
Just to give a little instance of what that letter is about, my brother is a foreign service officer with the Canadian government, and so he lives and travels in different places in the world at times. And he was working with Africa for a while, and he actually had to go to Uganda and look to see where Canada might be of service to help with some of the chaos that was going there. And at the time, there was a rebel group called the Lord's Resistance Army that was basically renowned for stealing children and creating children soldiers, and just the degree of atrocities and mutilation and abuse that took place was, you can't even, it's unfathomable. And my brother ended up spending some time at one of these camps where the kids that got out of this camp or that got saved from them would have this time period for a bit where they could stay in this place and sort of be taken care of, usually for about a month before they ended up having to be released again. And my brother was expecting to come there and just see devastation. And what he was speechless about was that it was the exact opposite. He had these kids there that were often missing a limb or had been through atrocities you can't imagine, that were playing with each other. They were laughing.
Yeah.
They were just so
Yeah.
thankful that they had a place that could be safe for
Yeah.
a period of time.
And some
And
of them had lost their parents, and some of them
oh,
had, right?
it was everything you don't want to imagine.
Yeah.
But my brother was so transformed. I remember when he came back and he was telling me the story, and he was all welled up just talking about it. And that's why I asked him to write the letter. But it's these heroes completely shift our perspective. They put things into perspective for us in a bigger picture, and
Yeah.
they help to give us the courage to maybe move in a similar fashion, like the little girl did for you. You don't have to
Oh,
be this, cape and spandex wearing hero. It could be a little child, it could be an elderly person, it could be a regular run-of-the-mill person that happens, that their experience resonates with you and helps you to find something deeper within
yeah.
yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a fun section, and in this section we walk you through how to even broaden your perspective of what a hero is. Sometimes the heroes are the ones that bring us the loving messages, and sometimes they can be the ones that bring us some tougher
Yep.
messages, but
Those are the hard ones.
actually make a profound impact on how we choose to move forward. And I often
Yeah.
find this with our parents. I find a lot of times with our parents, they can be both. Sometimes they give us the loving messages that really transform us, and they sometimes give us some really tough lessons that we
Yeah.
have learned from, that then we choose to do something different to grow and
Yeah.
expand our own life with our families.
Yeah. The best comment I ever heard was someone I knew she said, my father was the perfect example of who I don't want to be. I'm very
Mhm.
grateful for him to show me how I do not want to be towards my children, how I do not want to act towards others, and how I don't want to act towards myself, because it's virtually going to disintegrate, who I am. So sometimes you're right. Sometimes gratitude and heroes, live under the strangest rocks, right? And it's so powerful when, nobody's saying, say thank you to that person. What we're saying is, thank you for the awareness. Thank you for the experience, and thank you for the awareness of, I'm not doing that, or I'm not being that, or what in the world were you thinking? Look at the effect that you're having, right? That awareness is a gift, because it'll stop you from making those mistakes. It'll stop you from moving into that negative place. And that is a huge gratitude.
It's pretty amazing when you see people are able to pull out the awarenesses and the treasures or the gifts in any experience. And it's
Right.
not saying that you would ever want a certain experience to happen, and if you could
No,
change it, you would in a
no,
heartbeat. But in lieu of the fact that that's where we are, how do we
right,
find a place where we can find acceptance and we can find some sort of
right.
appreciation that allows us to move forward?
Yeah. And it's not a gift. The negative things that happen to you, the thing that happened to you is not the gift. Your awareness around anything you can pull out of it to keep you going. I woke up this morning, and I went down and I had breakfast. There's the gratitude, is that you got up and you kept going. I'm not grateful for the fact that this happened, right?
Mhm.
But I'm grateful for the fact that I am strong enough to get up and keep going. Or I'm grateful for the fact that I'm not strong enough to keep going, and I have all these loving people around me, right?
Mhm.
And I say this to people all the time, is don't mistake. I am not saying that anything negative that happens to you is the gift. That's not the gift. And people will say that all the time. How is it a gift that somebody murdered something? No, no, no. The gift is the gratitude of, I'm not getting through this, and you're sitting beside me while I'm crying. That's the gratitude, right? And
And a lot of times with these experiences that we don't like or that are hard, it's always hard to know what the bigger picture is with everything. I mean, we know this little piece of the puzzle at any point in time. Like, it's a good example is when a relationship breaks up or when a career ends. It at the time it might seem totally devastating,
oh,
and
it's
people cannot
impossible.
find a way to find any sort of appreciation at that point in time. But
Right.
maybe years down the road, you can look back on it and kind of go, holy cow, I am so thankful that that did not work out, because my life would have been going in a very different direction. And I can say that firsthand from different experiences with relationships, that that's exactly what I
Yeah.
felt. And at the
Yeah.
time, I would not able to come to that until you process it a little bit. I mean, whenever we go through these things, it's not denying the feelings that you are feeling at that point in time. We have to be honest with what we're feeling. And a lot of times just life feels shitty. And at
It
that point
does.
in time, you have to allow yourself to have that time to feel what it is, but
Right.
know that it's a transition, and that it's not permanent, and that it moves, and that we can stay with it and allow it to naturally transform
Yeah.
into
And
the
sometimes your gratitude
awarenesses.
in that moment is just, I'm still breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just,
It's true.
yeah, because you're
Yeah.
so devastated. And so, because people say this all the time, is how do you expect me to be grateful for anything in this moment? And I said, well, you're talking. Just be grateful for the fact that your voice works. Be grateful for the fact that you still got air going in and out of you, even if it's something that little. Energetically, it just brings in that little bit of a lift when you're so far down, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we keep talking about. Is it's not this big miracle, it's not this huge thing of I sit here and gratitude will lift me from everything. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, when you're down here and when you're at that point or anywhere in your life, right, gratitude will come in and it will just, like I said, relief, right? That's why the word relief came up. It's relief from that moment.
Yeah. And that segues right into another concept in the book. Tell us about random life crap. RLC, we call it. So this is
Random
when you
life
are,
crap.
this is when basically you are running through things, life's going really awesome, and then all of a sudden, whoom, you get smacked with a hard piece of unanticipated reality, and everything goes to shit for a little while. And it's like, at
Oh,
that point, what do you
yeah.
do? Because this is what we're talking about. It's not like you live in this place of gratitude all your life. I mean, it's pretty
No,
difficult to
no,
stay
no,
there.
no.
And I don't think you're living on planet Earth if you don't function in and out of different states. But I think
Right.
the more that this becomes a practice, you spend less time in those lower states, because you know that there's stuff that's going to come out of it.
Yep.
You know there's jewels
Yep.
of experience that come out of
Yep.
almost everything. And if our focus is to find that, then we will eventually arrive at it. So what's your take on random life crap?
I'm gonna share my favorite story. This is how I do my best. So we had been writing music for CTV Sports National for years, right? And it is a great gig, worked with producers, it was fantastic. But every year we had to go in to renegotiate our contract for the music. And, and I was heading out the door to the meeting, and he says to me, "Ha!" He said, "Wouldn't it be funny if he looked at you and said, 'We're not using your music anymore'? Ha ha!" And I looked at him and went, and of course I get down there, I go into the office, sit down, and he goes, "Well, we're not renewing your contract this year." Now this
Haha.
was our entire income. This was it. This was daily night work, 91 minutes of airtime. This was no, right. Okay. So I left the meeting, sat in my car for probably a good hour in the parking lot before we even left there, just going, what just happened? Because at the same time, this is a great story. At the same time, my parents, 2 weeks to the day after we got home from being married, when our honeymoon came home, announced that they were divorcing. So we were building a studio because our studio was in their house. What was funding that studio was that job. So that job's gone. Now we're about 30 grand in debt building the studio and no job. So not a lot of gratitude happening. Okay. Not a lot going on there other than just, are you kidding me? So kind of, okay, just keep going, blah, blah, whatever. Got a phone call from a head producer at Global Television, sports line. And he said, we heard you've been doing this, that, come in and see us. Turns out, after a long, long part of the rest of the story, we got the contract, and that basically kept us in business for the next 11 years. So at that moment when it hit, I, thank goodness, had enough sort of training from my parents, from other people that did this whole gratitude thing or whatever, to just not sit in the place of fear, right? And believe me, shitting my pants. So, okay, but not staying in that fear, but sitting in the place of, well, if I manifested that, I can manifest something else. And that's where I stayed. It was just in that place of, Is this optimal? No. Is this all working out right now? No. Are we potentially going to go bankrupt before we even start? Yes, but I did it before. I can do it again. And the
Mhm.
phone call came from Global Television, right? So this is where your fight comes, right? When you're at your lowest moment, when you're at that moment of there's no way out of this. This is the situation I'm stuck with. There is nobody riding in on a horse to save me at this moment. My life is falling apart over here, whatever. I found the gratitude in my experience in my life. Thank you for letting me know I'm capable. And even if I could just grab that one little essence, right? Because random life crap hits you. So you just need to find that little piece of light that shines through. Like we always say, there is no darkness. There's just an absence of light in that moment. My favorite thing. So this is what I feel this part of the book is about, is really looking at life from its real point of view, not this high spirity kind of everything will be fine, because we have to try and stay in that place. But we're not all sitting up on a mountain, like, making everything happen. This is real life. So real life crap is when the real life stuff hits, right? This, you're in the middle of trying to work and the kid, something happens, you have to leave work because you got to pick up the kid from school, even though you're in the middle of your biggest job, the random life crap. So how do we find our way through to any form of gratitude in that moment where you are just spinning out of control? And what I like to grab onto is thank you for the awareness that I will get through this. I don't know how, I don't know when, but thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for bringing me what I need to get through this. Even though it's not here yet, I'm going to say thank you and hope somebody wakes up upstairs to bring it down. So random life crap, right? It's that abundance of tornado that's coming at you and still finding your way clear to find that little piece that you can grab onto. Thank you for allowing my body to work today the way it is, right? Thank you for finding a sandwich in the fridge because there was nothing to eat and I got to go out, or whatever it is. All you need is that one little thing.
Yeah.
And
And I think a big part of this is that the more that we practice it, we build this spiritual muscle around then living it more effectively. So
yeah.
it's like, I mean, we all get hit by, I would say 2020 is not so much random life crap anymore. It's almost like expected life crap because
Oh,
there's been so much.
it
But
is the queen of random life
yeah.
crap.
But so the thing is, it's like, it's going to happen. But if you start to build in this idea that there's a bigger aspect to life,
Right.
and we're looking for where's the awareness, where's the opportunity for growth, that life doesn't necessarily happen to me, it's happening for me. This concept, it gives you a larger perspective to start to work with it. And
Right.
so, like you had said, where you have this sort of thankfulness for that, you're going to be able to get through it. It reminds me of the concept of unconditional confidence. It's this idea
Yep.
that when the wave knocks you down, you get back up again. And then the wave knocks you down again, you get back up again. But as you play with that, as you do that more and more, eventually you get to hold your ground a little bit better. And the big waves don't actually knock you down so much as they kind of just sway you back and you kind of come back again.
Yep.
I feel like the more that we experience this and the more we practice with it, you find that there's this knowingness that you're going to be okay and that you're going to be able to manage things and your life is going to be okay.
Right. Right. And having access to that. I think that's what this is all about is, it's not about strength. It's not about courage. It's not about, sometimes life kicks you down, right? The loss of someone, death is one of the most devastating things on earth to experience, especially when it's someone you wholeheartedly love. Like when I lost my mom, I didn't move for a year. I just sat down. But the gratitude that I have for the people who showed up, right? For the stories people shared with me of how they made it through their grieving, right? That's what I'm saying, is that when you can access that part of things, right? Because you're down in those dumps, but you can access that feeling of, wow, that really meant a lot to me. That's the saving grace. That's that moment where it comes in and goes, just gonna lift you up just a little bit out of this, right? It's All I want to do is just, right? Doesn't have to be some massive revelation. It doesn't, right? And then that builds you stronger because now you know, okay, I'm at my worst moment. I'm at this, I'm at that, but there's that little, like I said, that little bit of light, right? That's that gratitude. And that's what's so powerful for me about this book was it gives you the tools you need to help you build access to that relief in that moment, to
Mhm.
that gratitude in that moment.
Yeah, well said. And then when you are sharing it, you are essentially sharing that and you're sort of creating a space for that person to then find that within themselves
Yeah,
is what
that's the
happens. And
ripple.
that's the ripple. That's
That's
where
the
it
ripple.
starts with you. And then you literally allow that person to find what you've just found
Yeah. You know,
and you
you have
share
no
it.
idea how much that means to me. And then that person leaves knowing, oh my God, I actually did something to help.
Yeah.
I feel good about me. Right.
Awesome. So that gives everybody a pretty overall good picture of what we're talking about when we talk about the book, Letters That Move the World, Intentional Acts of Gratitude.
Right.
And we are imploring everybody to be a part of this movement because we created this vision, but the vision
Mm.
requires you to make it work. And
Yeah.
so we cannot do this by ourselves, but we are wanting to create the initial spark to try and get this movement out
Yeah.
to everybody. So, Cori, where
Yeah.
can people go to learn more about this movement, about the books?
Right. So we created a basic information page at lettersthatmovetheworld.com. When you go there, you'll see some basic information about the book. It'll give you a little bit of insight as to what's in the book, the overview of basically what are the letters, how do you write the letters, you know, all that kind of stuff. And from there, I believe we have access to your podcasts, which are amazing, and you'll have access to that. And then we will actually be posting sections from the book so that you can experience the feeling of writing the letters and the incredible positivity and the good stuff that it brings in when you do write those letters. We've made the book available on Amazon, so there is a print book that you can purchase, and it's really cool because the print book, when it comes, has, I don't know if you can see this, but it's got all of the actual processes in the book, which means if you're like me and you're a hands-on person and you want to actually write in the book and write your notes and experience the processes, the print book is great. But we've also created an ebook. And so you can download that, carry it with you wherever you go. So we tried to make it easy for you. We tried to make it uncomplicated because it really is just a very basic, simple concept of thank you. Just
Mhm.
thank you, right? And one thing I wanted to add to this, which is our, you'll know what I'm talking about with this, is this. Um, Over the years, you know, you evolve. You know, you start as a kid and you have this amazing awareness, and then you get to your teens, and then you get to be old. And so what happens is when you get to be, you know, I'm the oldest of the bunch of you, so what happens is you get to a place where your experiences happen over and over and over again enough to really bring home the fact that this is real. This isn't just some sort of fad. It's not just, oh, you know, I wore these stockings and I look 10 pounds, whatever. Okay. This is just basic, what's in you already. And all we're doing is just giving you the tools that you need to access it because it is, that's the word that came up, it's relief. And I feel that's what all of us need right now is relief. And so gratitude is whatever it is to you. That's the important part. We're using that word. Maybe gratitude is love. Maybe gratitude is giving. Maybe gratitude is just sitting in a moment with the people you love or for yourself and just feeling it in your heart.
Mhm.
So there's no prerequisites. There's no, you don't have to be a certain person to do it. You don't have to be a certain age to do it. I watch 5-year-olds sit and just say, let's say thank you, right? Okay, thank you for my chocolate chip cookie, right? Great.
Yeah, you are all qualified to do this.
Yep.
And sometimes too, when you think about when you're at a loss where you just don't even know where to start,
Yeah.
sometimes pick something that's very neutral. So
Yes.
for some people where they have a hard time finding gratitude for, say, a specific person, They
Right.
can find it with their family pet. Family pets are very
Oh
easy
yeah.
to connect to because there's a very unconditional feeling.
Yep.
Some people find that with, say, nature or a walk in the forest or the
Exactly.
beach.
Flowers, trees, right?
So
Exactly.
the idea is, like Cori said, it is individual. Gratitude is unique as you are, and your
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
that bring it in. The thing is, you're going to know when you feel it.
Yes.
You're going to get a
Yeah.
sensation, and whatever that is, perfect.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is for you at this point in time.
Yeah.
And what you might find is that when you connect to that first feeling, all of a sudden it's easier to find the other things that
That's
also.
the ripple. That's exactly it. That's why I said it's effortless. It's just find that one thing of this cartoon is making me laugh, or just, okay, I'm sitting here and I've been crying for 3 days and I don't know where to put myself. And just the fact that you're even just thinking about the fact that you want something to change. There's the gratitude. It's like, okay, I'm not just sitting in this anymore. I don't know how I'm going to change it, but the fact that I thought about it and I wanted to change it is like good for me. Right? Yay for me.
I will make sure that I've got all of the links in the show notes here.
Yeah.
I'm also in the process. I think I will be making a online course for it if people want more of a breakdown, step-by-step experiential piece of it. And it'll be kind of going through the book and me talking about it in our own way.
Right.
And when that's ready, I'll put that up on the Inspire Health podcast site.
Right.
But everything that you need to start will be on the website, and it's all very doable. The book will have the other letters in it and will take you through step by step for all of it. I mean, you can pick
Yeah.
up an ebook for next to nothing anyways. It's an easy way.
Yep.
And the main thing is just to share this. We need to get the vision out there. We need to share it with as many people as possible.
Yep.
And let's see if we can all move the world together.
Yep. To the positive. We want to move the world. And I preface this by saying we're not physically moving the planet to another solar system, since there's a lot of talk on that on TikTok right now. So we're moving the consciousness, we're moving the energy of the world to a positive, loving, understanding, accepting, and easier state. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, we're moving
That's
from this place that's created so much more division and separation and judgment to a place of more unity, interconnectedness, and compassion. And if
yeah.
we can create that ripple, then I feel like the possibilities that we have as all of humanity is endless.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cori, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I'm sure I will be talking to you again very shortly.
Probably in 5
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to invest in your health and well-being. Since this podcast is brand new, reviews and subscribers are so vital for us to get off the ground and share this really important information. So if you found this information valuable, please post a review and subscribe to the podcast so you'll get our newest episodes. Also, if you know of someone who would benefit from this, please share it with them. You can also find us on Instagram at #InspireHealthPodcast. If you have a question that you'd like to be addressed, direct message me on Instagram or leave a comment on one of my posts. I would love to hear from you. And you can grab our show notes and free resources for each episode at inspirehealthpodcast.com. So be sure to go online and check it out.